Okay, so today we're going to make some marmalade, and what we've got here is, which you can get, well, mostly any supermarket I guess, is the oranges already sliced and diced, ready for us to add our sugar and water later. So first thing we want to do is make sure we've got enough jam jars and lids and the elastic bands and the inserts that you do when you're making any type of jam or marmalades. You can note I've got some W's on some of the lids. That's because we're going to make some whiskey marmalade with the last third of the batch we're going to make. So first thing is re-clean and warm up the jars, and I'm going to give them another little wash out. They've been down in the garage storing up each time we have one of the used marmalade, and just give them a bit of a wash up and warm up, and then stick them in the airing cupboard while we make the jam. Okay, onwards. Okay, so that was quick, wasn't it? Wash those up, rinse them all off, and we're ready to stick them in the airing cupboard now, or a warm place if you haven't got an airing cupboard. Okay, so we're going to start to get everything ready now to make the marmalade, and what I've done is I've got this particular version which I pictured earlier, and it's really got some nice easy instructions which I'm trying to focus on here now. Probably not the best light. But it's on the tin anyway if you get this particular one, and it will take you through everything and tell you what you need. So got that, we've got the 1.8 kilograms of sugar, we've got scales and something to stick the sugar into to weigh it all, and nice big pan to make sure that when you put this lot in, that effectively you don't, well, you de-risk the idea of it bubbling over, which wouldn't be very easy to clean up, and I've come close to it when using a slightly smaller pan. So if you're going to give it all the attention you need, then you don't need something as big as this, but this is just me, and distractions, phone goes, whatever, and then before you know it, it bubbles over. Now there's a vital ingredient missing here, and if I just go over here, it's our good old friend Mr. Jack Daniels. So I'll be using a shot or two of that for the last 3 jars worth approximately. So there's about 9 jars worth that should come out of this standard recipe, and we'll see how we go later. Okay, right, let's just pause a minute while I first thing to do is open our tin up of our Seville orange bits and stick them in the pan. Okay, so the next stage was to add in 3/4 of a pint of nice fresh cold water up to this level, or just measure it out with a measuring jug, which is also 425 mils, which I've just done, and I've emptied into the pan, and just going to stir that in just briefly, get it going, because we're going to bring the sugar over. And now I'll put it on the heat. It says on the instructions to use a wooden spoon, so that's what I'm doing. Okay, now I've got to go get the sugar and stir that in. So the instructions say 1.8 kilograms. So this is going to be easy for the first. I don't need to weigh the first bit, so that'll be 1 kilogram. I'm just going to stir straight in to the mixture. Okay, so doing this one-handed isn't that easy while holding the camera. So you can see a little bit of the steam coming off as it's coming up to the boil. stirring gradually. And so on until you get your whole 1.8 kilograms in. So I've got all of the sugar stirred in now, and I've had that on a fairly lowish heat so that it wasn't boiling while I was trying to mix all the sugar in. So now the idea is to properly bring it up to the boil, so I'm just turning that up and get this up to the boil. It is important to make sure that during this whole process of heating up, you're continuously stirring with the wooden spoon all the way through to this point where it starts to bubble up. So now you can see when it's to the boil how it all goes. It's bubbling well. So now you want to keep it boiling, but you want to reduce the heat. You want to do that so it doesn't actually overflow on whatever pan you're using. So as I said earlier, I've used this really massive saucepan so that I don't accidentally misjudge it. I'm going to turn it down a bit more because it's going a bit too vigorous still. So I've gone from 6 down to about 3 now on the electric, and it's still bubbling well. Let that go down a bit more. Because it I'll go down to 2 now. Now it says add a knob of butter and let it boil for a further 15 minutes. So once I've got the boiling under control, I'm going down to 1 now. I've got my knob of butter ready over here. I'm just going to blob that in. Again, I'm just following the instructions in terms of this is what it says on the tin. Should help with the controlling the frothing, which it looks like it is. So what it says is reduce heat, maintain boil for a further 15 minutes, stir occasionally, add a knob of butter during boiling to disperse the foam, which it seems to be doing nicely. So I'm just going to get this, well, you can see this, all the butter hasn't quite dissolved yet, but it's certainly controlling the frothing, as it says. I'm going to get myself a basic kitchen timer now and set it for 15 minutes, and stir occasionally during. So you can see this is just on 1 on the control, and it's still bubbling. So whatever setting is right for yours, just enough to keep it all bubbling, and then occasional stirring, every few minutes or so, I think. What does it say exactly? It just says stir occasionally, so I'm just going to come back every couple of minutes and do that. So, see you in about 15 minutes time. Just an interim spot at this point, just to highlight that you do need to keep an eye on the boiling, and you can see it's just about bubbling there still. But what I've been doing each time I come back to stir is I've put it up another notch to keep up. So I was back down to 1, but I've gradually worked back up and now I'm on 4 to get that level of bubbling. So it's a good idea to keep an eye on just how much it's bubbling. Okay, got about 3 minutes left. Okay, so my timer has just gone off. I've switched it off and I'm just doing a final stir and getting everything from around the edges as well, in case anything's catching around the edge, so everything's nicely mixed in. And then I've just turned off the heat. So the instructions say, which you probably can't see very well, so I'm just going to read it while it's panning into the pan, is test for setting. Remove from heat, put half teaspoon of marmalade onto cold saucer and put in a cool place. Test after 2 minutes by drawing a finger over the surface. If it wrinkles, setting point has been reached. If not, reboil for a few minutes and test again. So here we go. Let's get a half a teaspoon of marmalade and put it. Well, I'm going to put it onto this, which is my spoon rest. That's what I've done before, and I'll do it again. Okay, I think that's about half a teaspoon. Let's get that on there. Just going to rest it there and then take it over to a cool part by the window. I think that'll do us. It's a cool day. Let's see how that works. I'll come back in 2 minutes. Okay, so 2 minutes is up from my alarm's just gone off. Let's see if it passes the test. I'm trying to get into a good light. Oh, might be. Okay. So the skin on that isn't quite how I'd like it, so I'm going to let it boil a bit more. Okay, so I whacked up the heat right up to 6 for a couple of minutes, and I've taken another teaspoon to try the test. So let's have a go now. Watch. There. Now that's perfect. See that? Do it again just to make sure. Perfect. Okay, that's the sort of consistency you're after. Hopefully you could see that okay. So now it's take it off the stove totally and get preparing for jarring up. So I'll get the jam jars out of the airing cupboard, where they should be nicely dry and ready for use, and warm so that they don't crack open when they get the hot marmalade inside them. Speak to you soon. So, moved everything over, made sure I put something underneath the hot pan there. Got my whiskey and my measurer ready. Now, usually I get approximately 9 jars out of this, so I'll be aiming to use the first 6 without any whiskey and the last 3 with, and got everything set out there. So I've got myself a ladle to ladle in to a jar at a time, and obviously I can't hold the camera and do that at the same time, so I'll do the first one and then show you in a second. So here's the first jar I've done, and you'll see that you want to get it fairly near the top, because of when you put the little pads in, or whatever they call them, and the little discs and the rubber band stuff. Now the important thing here is, if you've done this correctly, sorry about that, you should have your Seville Oranges suspended in place, so they should neither sink nor float. They should all be pretty evenly like that, just sitting there nicely, and they should remain like that when it's set, obviously, as well. So we can check on that a bit later. So I'll now do the next few more and speak to you soon. Are we rolling? Okay, so I thought I'd just show you how I fill up at least one of the jars. So I'll take a good scoop. If there's drips coming through, I do that first and then straight in. Again, catch the drips under there, scrape over, straight in. Catch the drips over there, straight in. Okay, last little bit, catch the drips over there, and just near the top but not to the top. Okay. Okay, so now I think I've got 5 jars, and I'm running, because probably some of these are a bit bigger than the last lot I used, so I'm stopping at 5 jars. Now I'm going to stick in some of our good friend Mr. Jack Daniels. Obviously you can use whatever whiskey you like, but I'm just going to put a double into the remaining amount that I've got here, and obviously it's a case of do it to your taste, but do make sure that you've mixed it in nicely and evenly. Oh, I'm getting the... Oh. Yes, that's very nice. Okay, so once you mix that in, you're ready to then just jar up. Okay, so this says it makes 6 pounds of delicious marmalade in just 30 minutes, homemade marmalade. So if jars are normally £1 jars, certainly the larger ones at the back are, I've managed to get the ones at the front here at a whiskey, and I was just a little bit short, but even though I scraped everything I could into that one from the pot, just to get every last bit out of it. So these 3 at the front are the whiskey ones. So 8 isn't bad, given that they're not obviously all pound pots. So it gives you a good idea of how far it can go. Obviously it will vary, and if you put a little bit more water in, if you find the constituency the way you want it. Some people like it less like a jelly or more like a jelly, so I like it sort of somewhere in the middle, which is what I showed you the tasting for, or the testing for earlier. Okay, so on the these are the jam pot covers we've been using. We've found that these £1 jam pot covers are a little bit more finicky to actually sort of fit on those. So we've subsequently bought the £2 jam covers and jam pot covers, and to me they're just easier to use. Obviously it's down to personal preference, but there's your little discs that you can put in, and there's the plastic bits with the rubber band that you put on. before just putting the lid on to help keep them preserved. So I'll maybe do one or two up and show you a couple of finished articles in a minute. There's just a few pointers for people that are doing it for the first time maybe. So just another little tip for these parchments that go in there before you put anything else on, it's dull side down, and if you can't easily tell, you can actually just brush your finger across the surface and you'll find that the shiny side will obviously be feeling a bit smoother than the dull side, which is a bit rougher underneath. So if you can't see very easily which is the dull side down, you can certainly feel it. Okay? Just another little tip. I think I also need to highlight that you leave these to cool long enough so that although it might feel a bit warm, it's certainly starting to set, like you can see here. So that's on the side, and this is not long after it's starting to set, but I can still feel it's a bit warm. So that's just another by the by to let it cool down before you then put the pot covers on and seal it up. Okay, so finished article. We've got the W's on top for the whiskey ones, and all the others with their various lids. So easy peasy, homemade marmalade. And when Seville oranges are in season and we can get them here, unless you pop over to Spain, I can do the whole thing from end to end, and you can see it done from the first steps from slicing the oranges up. But this is a good first stage for most people, I guess. Good luck if you have a go yourself, and see you on another vid. Bye. Just one last thing, if you enjoyed this video, can you please hit the like button down below, and if you wish to be made aware of any other videos that come along, please just hit the subscribe button. Thanks very much. Bye.